If there wasn't enough arrogance, unearned and otherwise, in the Donald Trump administration, there certainly is now with JD Vance as vice president. Speaking of unearned arrogance, all you have to do to be like JD Vance is to sell your soul to the devil, is to act one way and proclaim certain things about Donald Trump's policies and character, and then just flip on a dime and go with him. Join him in his fascism. JD Vance is the one who labeled Donald Trump America's Hitler. And now he's the vice chairman, the vice president of the America's Hitler. Fantastic. He appeared yesterday on with Margaret Brennan, and two different comments that I want to bring to your attention. And this is what's going to be the deal with Donald Trump trotting out JD Vance, is to use him as a shield or a distraction from what is going on. Because JD Vance is artful in the way he communicates. He's not artful if you pay attention. He's not artful if you are keen to the tricks of not answering the question and diverting attention from what was actually asked. But we're going to be here to hold his feet to the fire and highlight what the answer was to the question that was asked and what the answer was not in an answer to a question that was asked, if that is makes any sense whatsoever. For this first one is on the executive order. Margaret Brennan is asking directly, what have you done to bring down prices? All of these executive orders reversing this and taking away ethics constraints of people in the executive branch. What has that done to bring down grocery prices? Your executive order on mass deportation, how is that helping the American family? All of the Trump voters who whined and complained and sniveled about the price of eggs or the price of gas, which are all on their ways down. Oh, what did you do? And I want you to pay attention to his answer. And then we're going to move on to his justification for the broligarch attended inauguration ceremony where Donald Trump's supporters spent money that they could have been spending on eggs to fly here to Washington, D.C., and instead got literally left out in the cold while Donald Trump was in the rotunda at the Capitol in a private inaugural ceremony. But first, executive orders bringing in egg prices down.
You campaigned on lowering prices for consumers. We've seen all of these executive orders. Which one lowers prices?
We have done a lot, and there have been a number of executive orders that have caused already jobs to start coming back into our country, which is a core part of lowering prices. More capital investment, more job creation in our economy is one of the things that's going to drive down prices for all consumers, but also raise wages so that people can afford to buy the things that they need. If you look at our slate of executive orders, no, Margaret, prices are going to come down, but it's going to take a little bit of time, right? The president has been president for all of 5 days. I think that in those 5 days, he's accomplished more than Joe Biden did in 4 years. It's been an incredible breakneck pace of activity. We're going to work with Congress. We're, of course, going to have more executive orders, and we're going to try, the way that you lower prices is that you encourage more capital investment into our country. And you ask specifically, what executive order is going to help lower prices? All of the stuff that we've done on energy, to explore more energy reserves, to develop more energy resources in the United States of America. One of the main drivers of increased prices under the Biden administration is that we had a massive increase in the energy prices. Donald Trump has already taken multiple executive actions that are going to lower energy prices, and I do believe that means consumers are going to see lower prices at the pump and at the grocery store, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Rome wasn't built in a day, and while we've done a whole lot, we can't undo all of the damage of Joe Biden's presidency in 4 days.
Well, there are a lot of things that contributed to higher energy prices, and there was record oil and gas production.
Yes, Joe Biden did many terrible things to lead to an increase in prices. I agree, Margaret.
No, but all the things you experience at the grocery store are what people touch and feel. That's what you were talking about, bacon on the campaign trail.
Of course, of course.
Those things when do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives?
Well, Margaret, how does bacon get to the grocery store? It comes on trucks that are fueled by diesel fuel. If the diesel's way too expensive, the bacon's going to become more expensive. How do we grow the bacon? Our farmers need energy to produce it. So if we lower energy prices, we are going to see lower prices for consumers, and that is what we're trying to fight for.
Well, the flurry of executive orders, most of them weren't about the economy.
Which executive order brings down prices? We have done a lot. Which one? It should be an easy question if you've done so much, JD Vance. If you've done a lot, you could just pick one of the many that have brought down prices, right? And then, of course, so grocery prices aren't going to come down. No, Margaret, prices are going to come down, but it's going to take a little bit of time. It's contrary directly to what Donald Trump has promised for months and months and months. That on day one, in 24 hours, the conflict in the Middle East would be over. In 24 hours, the conflict in Ukraine would be over. In 24 hours, grocery prices would start to come down. I guess it's just a room full of crickets now because that's not happening. Donald Trump lied, duped people who shouldn't have been dupable. Everyone should know the character of Donald Trump by now. But apparently, there's a pretty wide swath of America that doesn't pay attention or is desperate to give power to a fascist and allow him to extricate himself from consequences of the legal problems that he created for himself when, one, he attempted to overthrow the United States government, and two, when he absconded with highly sensitive national security secrets. But the eggs, they screamed. And instead of being this populist man of the people, Donald Trump instead surrounded himself with tech oligarchs, worth nearly $1 trillion, with just like 3 or 4 of them sitting there in the inaugural ceremony in the rotunda of the United States Capitol, while his supporters were left out in the cold. And when she asked about this, she says, well, I tell you what, I won't repeat the question. Maybe I will at the end. But watch this and notice what the question was and how the answer did not answer the question.
I'm being told we're out of time, but I want to quickly ask you, the richest men in the world were at that Capitol on Inauguration Day. Heads of Amazon, Google, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. In August, you told us Google and Facebook are too big. We ought to take the Teddy Roosevelt approach. Break them up. Don't let them control what people are allowed to say. They've now donated to the Trump inauguration. Are you still going to break up big tech?
So, you know who else was at the inauguration was my mom, and a lot of people who just supported the president and fought every single day to get his election.
They gave $1 million
possible.
each to the inauguration.
And there were a lot of people who didn't give $1 million to the inauguration.
They got pretty good seating.
Who were on that stage, Margaret. They didn't have as good a seating as my mom and a lot of other people who were there to support us. But look, we believe fundamentally that big tech does have too much power, and there are 2 ways they can go about this. They can either respect Americans' constitutional rights, they can stop engaging in censorship, and if they don't, you can be absolutely sure that Donald Trump's leadership is not going to look too kindly on them.
So they're still on notice.
They're very much on notice.
Are you still going to break up big tech? Do you know who else was at the inauguration? My mama! Not an answer to the question, JD. And also, just because your mom is a hayseed like you does not mean that the rest of the hayseeds that spent their hard-earned money to come watch the inauguration, did they get to because your mom was there? Your mom was there only because you're the vice president of the United States of America, dipshit. You think your mama would have been at the inauguration on the inside of the rotunda if she had not been your mother? No. Just like the tens of thousands of people, it wasn't hundreds of thousands, and that's the reason there was no outdoor inauguration, because of the sheer embarrassment of Donald Trump. But then again, they gave $1 million each to the inauguration. There were a lot of people who didn't give $1 million to the inauguration who were there on stage. What about all the people who didn't give $1 million? What about the people who did? What about the tech oligarchs that you're now ceding power to and are bending their knees to the will of Donald Trump and the fascist agenda, even within their company policies about DEI? Dickholes like Mark Zuckerberg. people who have Nazified Twitter, Elon Musk, and then just the go along to get along in Jeff Bezos. Anything to line their pockets with more cash. That's the objective. It's not to make the world a better place. It's not to use their privilege and power and wealth to shield Americans from the deleterious effects of Donald Trump's policies. No. They're afraid of, with all of their wealth, all of their power, all of their influence, they're just quaking in their boots, cowards of the weakest man who has ever held the office of president, Donald Trump. Just a feckless, brainless fuck. Insecure coward. And you quake before him, just like JD Vance. Going back on deeply held convictions about what a Nazi, what a Hitler Donald Trump was. While MAGA mocks him for the color of his wife and children. What do you think? Comment below. You can call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me, as always, daily@dollemore.com. I do want to hear from you. I would love it if you would consider supporting this work right here on the channel. If I'm not your flavor of political commentator, if I'm not your guy, that's fine. Find somebody in independent media, whether it be somebody with a Substack, somebody with a YouTube channel, somebody who's doing good work, support them. $2 a month goes a long way if people in this space are able to scale. And if a few hundred or whatever people were to give $200, it turns into $200 very easily. So support people. If it is me, great. Become a channel member. Or go to my Patreon, patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. We don't got it like Turning Point USA and the fascists within right-wing media. So we need to rely on each other and support work like this. Follow me on social media. I'm at Dollemore. I'd love to see you there, and I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another.